With the start of my holiday season and holiday break from university, I decided to dive into Dark Souls to get my first ever true Souls like experience. I have only ever heard good things about the Dark Souls series and wanted to try it out for myself. I've heard numerous people talk up the game about how much fun it is to play, even when it is incredibly difficult at times. Some even go as far to say that playing and beating Dark Souls is a sort of rite of passage when it comes to being a true, hardcore gamer. While I don't necessarily agree with that, I do understand the sentiment. Dark Souls is supposedly one of the greatest games in the last decade, and so I was very eager and excited to dive into what is a passion to many gamers around the world. Fortunately for me, Dark Souls Remastered was on sale on the Steam Marketplace at the perfect time, and so my journey into the Kingdom of Lordran was finally ready to begin. Like all Dark Souls playthroughs, I started with character creation. Looking through all of the class types, I decided to go with the Thief. I knew I didn't want to go with a more strict mage or huge barbarian type character. I wanted someone thin and agile that could use a variety of weaponry, and the Thief seemed like a good option for that. During character creation, I was on some level guessing what the stats were. I did not know what faith did versus intelligence. I had to guess what dexterity did in the game, and more. All of that is completely fine given that it was my first playthrough of the game. I'm not supposed to know this stuff. Part of the fun of playing video games is discovery. If I knew the supposedly best class and stats right at the get-go, well, that wouldn't make my experience too great because I would then just be playing to maximize my advantages over the game instead of simply experiencing the game from an experimental point of view. The best way I can relate experimental gameplay to Dark Souls is with games such as Terraria, where you may experiment with a load of different weaponry, armor, and accessories just to triumph over bosses. All along the way, you learn what does and doesn't work, as well as what playstyle you prefer. I think a journey of self-discovery is vital when it comes to a game's level of success. So, after choosing my Thief class, I had to pick a gift. I was not sure what all the gifts did, and after reading their very brief descriptions, I decided to go with Twin Humanities. I was already given a Master Key just for picking the Thief class, so that was good. Then the Twin Humanities just seemed like something that could be good for me to have. At the time, I did not know what humanity did or how important it could be for a run, so it was just wishful thinking that I chose a good one. Looking back at it now, I probably would have chosen one of the rings instead, but that's the beauty of Dark Souls. The style you want to play can be complemented right at the start based on who you choose to play and what you choose to start with. Now that character creation was over, it was finally time to start my journey in Dark Souls by commencing the opening scene where the knight from above drops you a key to escape. I wasn't too familiar with the controls of Dark Souls, so this beginning stage of the game was where I started figuring out how to move the camera, the player, navigate the menus, etc. I wanted to have a general idea of what was where in the menus and how to control my character before getting into potential battles. Also, this is the first game I've played in a while on controller, so I was getting used to using a controller again since I primarily play with mouse and keyboard. After making my way through the beginning halls, I arrived at this giant door at this church-like building. I noticed on the ground that there was some writing prompting me to go to the left upon entering the building. That, on top of the fact that I've seen bits of this starting area on YouTube before, meant that I knew I should run to the left right away because a boss was about to spawn. Now would be a good time to note to the viewers that Dark Souls is completely new to me, except that I had seen some very short clips on YouTube of the first two bosses in the game, which that shouldn't be too big of a surprise given this game has been out for almost a decade now, and it is a very popular game worldwide. However, the layout and the mechanics and everything else in the game I was completely blind to, so I was heading on a huge journey of self-discovery and potential frustration in a world I knew next to nothing about. So, after making a quick escape out of the boss room, I ventured through the starting areas, finding a few goodies along the way that would make my character stronger. I stumbled upon a fallen knight who would offer me an Estus flask that would serve as a healing potion throughout the remainder of the game. I saw my brethren lying on the floor just inches away from death. I knew his time was coming to a close, and I figured I would end his suffering now, and who knows, maybe even loot his body for potential upgrades, which was actually more so the reason as to why I killed him. I noticed that while progressing through this first level of the game, my combat skills were definitely lacking in comparison to them at the end of the game. Obviously, you all have not seen that gameplay yet, as that video has yet to surface, but for me, I can see it while creating this, and I noticed that it was very hesitant when it comes to fighting enemies. Not knowing what their attack patterns were, how much damage they did, not being able to effectively parry enemies at this point, and more, led me to a hesitant combat style. I would try to bait enemies into open areas and away from other enemies, so that way I could do 1v1 fights and then go for one hit, then roll away. Then one hit, then roll away, and again until they died. This strategy did work, but it was by no means optimal. I was walking on eggshells, so to speak. Killing one of the skeletons just before traversing the white light, I got a longsword that I could two-hand wield, which was more effective than the weapons I had at the time. With my new sword in hand, I traversed the white light for the first time in Dark Souls. Well, as expected, I died on my first try. Granted, when I walked into this room, I thought if I didn't move, I would be able to observe the surroundings before the fight started, but I was wrong. After respawning, I cut my way through the enemies leading to the boss room for a second attempt at the Asylum demon. Would you look at that? Using the plunging technique and with the right character placement, I was able to triumph over the Asylum demon on my second try and without taking a single hit. Just after killing the boss, I began smashing all of the pots in the boss room. Thinking like this was similar to Zelda, I thought items could be in pots. I was wrong, there was nothing, so onwards I went. Reaching the summit at the cliff's edge of the Northern Undead Asylum, I, the chosen undead, was picked up by some sort of guardian bird that dropped me off at the Firelink Shrine in the Kingdom of Lordran. This Firelink Shrine was what I personally would consider a staple, if not the staple, of the Dark Souls franchise when it comes to an image that I associate with the games. Coming here was a sort of comfort because I knew now that I was both in this safe space, but also the real beginning of what would be my long and hard-fought journey in this world. With the souls I was gaining from killing enemies, I was unsure of what to upgrade. I did not yet know what kind of character build I was going to use, what kind of weapons were in the game, or what all the stats even did. So, I just guessed. I noticed that if I increased my attunement by 1, then my attunement slots would go from 1 to 2, and that seemed like a good upgrade as it doubled the slot number, even though at the time I had absolutely no idea what was supposed to go in those slots. At Firelink Shrine, I could immediately notice that there were items spread about for me to find. I took this time to speak with the NPCs around the area to get a better grasp of the story and what I was supposed to do, along with scavenging all parts of Firelink Shrine, trying to find potential upgrades to my loadout. In doing so, some of the skeletons down by the cemetery tried to give me a run for my souls, but I came out on top, and not only with their souls, but with their scimitar as well, which I would go on to use for a good bit of time. Now I was left to decide where to go. This is where I really found Dark Souls to be intriguing and fun. There was not a clear-cut path for me to go. I had options right from the start by means of going towards Undead Burg, the Catacombs, New Londo Ruins, the Valley of Drakes, and more. You get the point. Because I could go anywhere and no one told me where to go first, I started by taking the giant lift down to the New Londo Ruins, where I would find my first NPC in the wilds, in the form of Rickert de Vinheim, the blacksmith. Then, I continued exploring, finding my way to the Valley of Drakes, then towards the giant ogres of Blighttown, which ended up killing me. No! I then returned to where I died, but ran past the ogres into Blighttown trying to find loot. I managed to open the first chest, which revealed a key that could be used in the New Londo ruins. I left Blighttown and headed to the Valley of Drakes, where I found a sleeping dragon near some items. I snuck up on the dragon, grabbed the first item, and then wondered to myself if this dragon was actually even alive. So, I gave it a little swing.
Oh my god, it's alive.
I proceeded to then run back to Blighttown again, except this time I went on a crazy little run.
Oh my god, what is that? I'm alive. I'm being shot at. No, he fell on me. No. Somewhere, run somewhere, run somewhere, run somewhere, run somewhere. Caught on here. There's more. That's this flask. Yo, what is that thing? I think I can survive that. They're flying at me. Oh, you know what? Whatever. Do it. No, 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 no!
At this stage of the game, I was pretty much exploring everywhere, even if that meant dying, because I wanted to see what items I could find, as well as get a general idea of the map layout in terms of what locations were where. For example, I returned to the Valley of Drakes a couple more times to grab the remaining items at the dragon's feet, dying each time but getting the goods along the way, so it was worth it. Then, the game took a turn because I headed on the intended correct path, which was of course, towards Undead Burg. Still exploring the nooks of the world, I found a ring of sacrifice out on the edge just before Undead Burg. Once I made it to Undead Burg, I took my time killing each and every enemy in my path, stacking up my pile of souls. I explored every nook and cranny of Undead Burg that I could find. I managed to find new rooms, which led to more loot, more enemies, and even a merchant. I found a Black Knight, which I baited and made him follow me to an area that I saw better fit to killing him. I found out just how beefy enemies can be just from the amount of time it took to kill this one enemy. At the bonfire, I offered up my humanity for the first time, and I did not know what that meant. I didn't know how that would benefit my character at all then, and I still don't actually know to this day. Surely I could look it up, but that is actually one of the rules I set for myself when playing this game. I was not going to look anything up. I wanted as organic a playthrough as I could manage, so no videos, guides, wikis, none of that. Just me and Dark Souls. During my exploration, I went down a giant tower to find an extremely beefy looking enemy wearing Havel's armor. I fought him just as I would fight any other enemy to find out this.
Wow, he one-hits you. I didn't know he one-hits you. Okay. You have to be perfect to kill him.
So getting one shot by this guy told me that I should either just run past him or fight him at a later time. I did both of these things. Firstly, I came back to the same spot and ran past the enemy, then opened and bolted through the door where I found myself in Darkroot Basin. Here in Darkroot Basin, I was beginning to feel like I was not where I was supposed to be. I could see giant crystal golem creatures scattered about, an absolutely humongous hydra in the water, and just this dark, eerie feeling that the world had made me think I was biting off more than I could chew when it came to exploring the zone. Despite these observations, I was alive and there were items to be found, so I just continued to look for them. I found myself a set of leather armor and a longbow on the side of a cliff wall. That longbow would be a huge upgrade to my loadout because I would go on to use it many times in this run. I climbed to the top of Darkroot Basin to find myself at the Darkroot Garden. Here I saw a tree monster in the narrow gap between these rocks and mountain-like structures. I was beginning to feel like I'd ventured too far out, so I did start going backwards. I ran to the bottom of Darkroot Basin where I found a Black Knight that I ran away from.
Random cave, okay. There's a bonfire in the cave. No way. Yo. This is insane, man.
At this point, I had seen so many different locations in Dark Souls in what felt like such a short amount of time, I just did not know where to go fully. But I was happy for that. It felt good knowing that this game was a mystery, and I could go nearly anywhere I wanted to, even if that meant getting destroyed by enemies. The option was there for that. I was beginning to see why people like Dark Souls so much. The options you have are numerous. It made me wonder just how many other people have done what I've done and how many haven't. I could see Dark Souls noobs not even daring to venture beyond what seemed like the intended path. But where there is risk, there is usually reward, so I welcomed it. All daring explorations aside, I returned back to Undead Burg to fight my way to the entrance of the boss room where I took my first shot at the Taurus demon.
Okay, what is this guy? Taurus demon. That right there. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. Go, 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 go. Get up, get up, get up, get up, go! That's it?
A nice little first try victory against the Taurus demon was good to see. This was the other boss that I had seen clips of in years prior. By using the same plunging technique as I did for the Asylum demon, I was able to make quick work of him. After my second boss victory, it was now time to make my way towards Undead Parish. It was during this expedition that I met Solaire of Astora, and his praise of the sun that I would go on to see written all over the kingdom of Lordran. I couldn't quite travel across the upper bridge to the bonfire on the other side, so I had to go under the bridge to reach Undead Parish. In doing so, I took a few deaths by falling off the map and from poison. Each time I respawned back in Darkroot Basin and realized the importance of resting at specific bonfires. Since I was spawning at the bonfire in Darkroot Basin, close by the Hydra, I thought it would be a good time to try and grab the loot just at the base of the Hydra's water. I died a few times trying to do this, but ultimately was able to do so. This type of loot and run strategy I used several times in my early hours of Dark Souls, and I believe it to have been to my benefit. Next, I bought the residence key from the merchant in Undead Burg, along with a few other items that would be useful back at the bonfires for repairing equipment. Then, fast forward to my arrival at the front of Undead Parish, and there was this black knight at the top of a tower. I tried defeating him a few times, and then on one of my attempts, he randomly disappeared and died, and I got dropped this.
Okay.
Fighting my way through Undead Parish, I was able to start seeing the potential of the longbow. I made light work of all the surrounding skeletons and left the giant ghoul for last. I just simply sat above this enemy and kited him from afar with the longbow. It was a very easy kill, and the longbow strategy was most definitely coming into play in future endeavors. For example, I bought a couple hundred arrows from the merchant back in Undead Burg, then sat under the bridge with the dragon and very slowly started knocking down his HP by shooting him from below. This strategy was slow, but it was safe, and I thought it would then allow me to access the bonfire that the dragon was guarding. Ultimately, I was able to get the dragon down to half HP before I realized that it would just regenerate health and I wouldn't be able to kill it. However, during this long process of shooting arrow after arrow at the dragon, I got what would be a game-changing weapon for me.
Oh my god.
Yep, just like that, I had myself a Drake Sword, which I would use for an extensive amount of this playthrough. The weapon was just really good for several points of the game. At the time of receiving this weapon, my stats were not high enough to single-hand wield it, but I could two-hand wield it, and that was enough for me. Shortly after, I arrived at the blacksmith of Undead Parish. I went down the staircase near the blacksmith to see this.
What the heck is that?
Then, I managed to find the elevator lifts that connected the Firelink Shrine to Undead Parish. These lifts I used several times throughout the game and even for upcoming boss fights, because spawning at the Firelink Shrine bonfire, I would then have 10 Estus flasks instead of 5, and the run wasn't much longer than the Undead Parish bonfire. I explored the upper parts of the church and found a prisoner hidden away that said they would give me a reward for freeing them, but just not at that moment. I contemplated killing him, thinking he might be duping me, but decided against it just in case he did have something valuable to share at some point. I proceeded to the other side of the church and up the ladders to find myself facing the white light that would lead me to the bell gargoyles, and this is what happened.
This is a boss, I have no idea. This looks like it's gonna be a boss battle. Oh my. Get up, get up, get up. Pop an Estus. Stop spraying your fire and I'll come out. Oh no. Come on. One more. Let's go! There's another one! There's multiple! There's multiple! No! Oh man.
For a first attempt at the bell gargoyles, that actually wasn't that bad, all things considered. Obviously, my choice to run where I did was probably bad, but to kill one of them was a lot further than many of my future attempts, and when I say future attempts, I do mean attempts because there were many, and many were fails. After several deaths to the bell gargoyles, I decided to chat up the NPCs at Firelink Shrine some more. I found the prisoner I freed in Undead Parish, and he gave me a sunlight medal. At the time, I had no idea what it did and how useful it would be. I decided to continue letting the prisoner live. Then, I talked to the woman behind the bars and reinforced my Estus flask with the Firekeeper soul that I found at the first floor of the church in Undead Parish. This would be very useful for keeping my HP up during the Bell Gargoyles fight. Before heading back to fight the Bell Gargoyles, I actually made my way back down to Blighttown to give it a better look through. I knew that there was more to explore there that I hadn't in the earlier game because I was weak and scared of the enemies. With my Drake Sword in hand and a few more levels on my side, I was confident I could find more items down there. And that I did. I managed to find myself a full set of Crimson armor, which was better than pretty much every other piece of armor I had so far. It was lighter, it had more defense, so it was a win-win on both fronts. With this armor in my inventory, I didn't quite use it yet, but soon I would. I took my Drake Sword and reinforced Estus flask up to the top of the church as I was feeling like I could topple the Bell Gargoyles, so I made my way back to the boss fog wall to take my chances. Alright, so I was still dying and decided to go check out other parts of the map again. In doing so, I found a door I could open near Solaire of Astora that led me to Lower Undead Burg. I explored this residential area to find dogs and bandit-like enemies. Using the residence key I previously had purchased, I went into the homes of forgotten residences and found another prisoner, a sorcerer of sorts, who went by the name Griggs of Vinheim. Then, I kept pushing my way through the rest of the Lower Undead Burg until I found myself in the sewers that connected the Firelink Shrine to this part of Undead Burg. Here, there was a creepy merchant woman behind bars that sold a variety of items, most of which I did not need at the time. I backtracked to a fog wall I had seen in Lower Undead Burg to finally traverse it. I had a feeling a boss was behind it, so I waited to explore everything before peering inside, and now was the time to change that.
Alright, I don't know what this is, but I'm going in. It's a boss battle! I didn't know that was gonna be a boss, man.
Yep, that boss absolutely pooped on me. I returned once more to retrieve my souls and give it another attempt now that I knew what enemies were lying on the other side. I was met with the same fate. I decided to not go back to the Copper Demon right now and instead climbed my way to the top of Firelink Shrine. Here I found a giant bird's nest that I was able to curl up inside. I sat curled, waiting and waiting to see what would happen. Just as I was about to give up, the giant bird from the beginning of the game swooped up and took me back to the Northern Undead Asylum. I figured if I was able to come back here, then surely there must have been a reason. So, I did as I always do. I explored.
What the heck? I was not ready for this. Can I get out? Try up. What do you mean up? Up where? Well, I there was no way I was gonna expect for the floor to drop through and then me to die.
Yeah, so apparently there was another boss just below the first Asylum demon, and this one is a stray demon. I was definitely not prepared for that boss encounter, especially given that I did not traverse any fog wall, but it was a funny little surprise. I find it interesting that this game is called Dark Souls, but of the first 5 bosses I've found, 4 of them have been demons in the form of the Asylum demon, Taurus demon, Copper demon, and Stray demon. I know that the first game in the franchise was called Demon Souls, which I've never played, but yet this game, called Dark Souls, has a bunch of demon enemies. At least so far it does. Just thought that was interesting. Anyways, I kept exploring and walked around the pitfall that leads to the stray demon to see what I could find. I ran all the way back to my first prison cell from the beginning of the game to find it guarded by a black knight. I realized that there was an item behind him that he was guarding, and knowing how beefy of an enemy he was, I simply ran around him, grabbed the loot, and ran away. It was a peculiar doll, which I did not know what it did then, and I still don't know now. I should probably look it up, but that might never happen. So, at this point, I know where 3 different bosses are, and I'm fairly certain the one that I have the best shot of killing are the Bell Gargoyles. All explorations aside, it was time to return to the place where I had died so many times before. In doing so, my first attempt back was a death. I took a moment to contemplate what I could do to increase my odds of victory, and that is when I put on the Crimson Armor. Returning to the top of the church again, I managed to fail once more, but after so many trials, I knew I had what it took to win this battle. I just needed that perfect start to the fight, and that perfect start I would find.
Half HP. That was literally the perfect start. With the potion. No. Potion. Alright, come on, I'm totally ready now. What's up, brother? What's up? Come on, one more. Yes! Is that victory? Let's go!
It may have taken me 11 total attempts to win the fight against the Bell Gargoyles, but boy was it worth it. The feeling of triumphing over a difficult boss is a good one, and I know that feeling very well from my 100 Days Challenge in Terraria's hardest difficulty. If you're curious as to what I'm talking about, then there's a video linked in the description for you to watch and find out. So, after defeating the Bell Gargoyles, I climbed my way up the ladders to the top of the bell tower. Here, I rang the first of 2 bells of awakening and made what I considered to be a first major milestone in the storyline of Dark Souls Remastered. I climbed back down to the bottom of the bell tower to find this very creepy looking merchant waiting for me. He sold some items that I did not need or want at the time, but would definitely come back for in the future.
Thou art welcome any time. It is only human to commit a sin.
That guy is weird. That was creepy. Going down the ladder, he's just standing there like that.
I knew from talking with the NPC at the Firelink Shrine that there were 2 bells of awakening, one far above and the other far below. So, given my knowledge of the game thus far, to me that meant I should either explore Blighttown or the Catacombs next. Not knowing which was the correct option to the second bell, I chose the Catacombs. I found this area to be a difficult one to traverse, particularly because if you didn't kill the necromancers, then after killing a skeleton they would simply get back up and fight you again. It took some learning to figure out the locations of the necromancers throughout the catacombs, as well as the intended path to travel. This area just had me a bit confused, and I had to take it for what it was. I made my way through the first part of the catacombs, slaying all of the skeletons along the way, to find a random guy sitting atop a ladder. I spoke with him and he had some gibberish to say, but what really set me off was when he told me to watch my step and proceeded to give me an evil laugh. As soon as that happened, I knew I was killing this guy.
Well, whatever it is, this place is treacherous. You watch your step.
Well, he killed me first, but don't worry, I did come back to finish the job. I also found a secret bonfire behind an illusory wall, which was nice because it was further along the catacombs than the one I had been resting at previously. From here is where I had more troubles figuring out where to go next. The catacombs were dark, and the skeletons I was killing were getting back up because I couldn't find the necromancers. So, to combat this issue, I just jumped off the cliff. I could see that there were items below, and I managed to survive the fall, so I kept my explorations going in hopes of finding a bonfire down here that I could rest at. There are these pinwheel skeletons that did a lot of damage to me and were tedious to deal with. They did kill me a few times, but eventually I made it past them. I stumbled down this narrow pathway between two giant rock walls that led me to what appeared to be some sort of giant Egyptian tomb. I peered inside, didn't see much, so I jumped in.
Oh my. This dude's gonna look nasty, I can tell. Three faces, three dudes morphed. Pinwheel. Oh no. Did I win? Was that it? Is there another stage to this? That's it? Wow. I just won first try, okay?
An unexpected boss fight that turned into a first try victory? I mean, why not? I'm not really sure how, but somehow it was. That means that thus far it took me 2 tries to kill the Asylum demon, 1 try for the Taurus demon, 11 tries for the Bell Gargoyles, and 1 try for Pinwheel. Those statistics tell me that the Bell Gargoyles are clearly the hardest boss I have faced thus far. After defeating Pinwheel, I used a ladder to climb to the top of the other side of the tomb, where I found myself at the forefront of the Tomb of the Giants. Now, if I thought the catacombs were dark, then I was tripping, because this tomb was pitch black. It was barely lit only by small dazzling lights in the ground and the glows of enemy eyes. Without knowledge of what was ahead, I died from fall damage and eventually decided to explore this part of the game at a later time because I thought maybe I needed an item or an ability to create light that I did not quite have. I returned to the Firelink Shrine and spoke with one of the prisoners I had previously freed when he said this line to me.
It's really slipping, but there are methods. Most fools have more humanity than they know what to do with.
For whatever reason, that quote stuck with me throughout the entire game. I still didn't know how important humanity was, if I should reverse my hollowing, save my humanity for the future, and probably a bunch of other thoughts I had at the time. There was this giant question mark around the use of humanity, and when he said that to me, it only strengthened those wonders in my mind. My first 10 hours of Dark Souls were what I would consider to be a joyous experience. Even with all the deaths, I found this game to be an absolute blast. It certainly beat playing arena shooters over and over again. Exploring the unknown and learning a game for myself without the help of the internet truly made me feel like a young kid again. Back in the day, I didn't have guidebooks, YouTube tutorials, and whatever other forms of media people use to find out information about video games. All I had was the word of mouth from my brothers, my friends, and what I personally experienced. This game gave me back that feeling again, and it was a feeling I 100% welcomed as the age of video games is changing. This was just part 1 of 4 when it comes to the story of my first ever Dark Souls experience. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to subscribe for more content because parts 2, 3, and 4 are coming in the weeks to follow, and I'd like to think you'll enjoy those too if you liked this video. Have a great holiday season, everyone. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all in the next video, but until then, I'd like you to remember that most fools have more humanity than they know what to do with.